Welcome to Chapter 11, Revenue Cycle Back-End Processes. So we discussed the front-end revenue cycle process. Do you recall the goals and the task and the role that you would perform here? Well, you schedule services, you look at patient portals, price transparency, insurance requirements, demographics, are they correct? Looking at patient authorizations, patient financial responsibility, and ABNs. In the middle process of the revenue cycle, we talked about charge capturing, barcoding, charge master, the role of HIM in coding, and you looked at some UB forms. You also looked at the coding process and how it relates to facility coding, professional coding, and single path coding. So now we move into the last component of the revenue cycle. This is referred to as the back end. The back end processes include claims production, claims submission, determine expected reimbursement, adjunctification, benefit statements, claims reconciliation, and collections. A great deal of these tasks in this cycle are accomplished by your chief financial officer or your finance department or even your business office. However, HIM and coding professionals are called upon to provide expert advice for producing accurate claims and reconciliation of claims based on the documentation in the clinical record. Here are your learning objectives for Chapter 11. The slide here on your screen shows you the back-end processes and how they are supported by the collection of accurate reimbursement during the patient encounter. So I will go through each one so you understand it, but also make sure you read about this in your textbook as well. The first task you do after all charges have been captured in the facility is to prepare the claim for submission to be sent over to the third-party payer, who is our insurance company. We have to make sure the claim is accurate and complete. If you remember from previous classes, or even HIT 109, scrubbing was discussed. Scrubbers are internal auditing systems that will run edits based on the third-party payer to identify any errors or red flags. So what types of errors or red flags might we see? Well, maybe the date of service doesn't match. We have the wrong diagnoses or procedure code. There's lack of medical necessity, or we've even included inaccurate revenue code assignments. So it's important that we scrub our claim and look at it and make sure it's accurate before we submit it for reimbursement. On page 169 of your text, you'll see a table of essential data for healthcare and insurance claims. This is not an all-inclusive list of what we need on the claim, but it's a good reference to see what data elements are needed in order to assure an accurate claim. So make sure when you're doing your reading, you take time to look at this list. Next process is claim submission. After we have scrubbed our claim and we are confident that everything is accurate, we then can submit our claim. We submit the claims electronically, and this is supported by HIPAA, insomuch that in 2003, it was required that all facilities send claims electronically. So no more do we have to do paper UB04s or 1500s. This is all done electronically. However, you might find some facilities that still use paper because of workman's comp. But for the most part, this is all done electronically. Our third step is determining expected reimbursement. After we submit our claim, we are using this data to calculate our expected reimbursements. Why? Why would we do this? Well, we use expected reimbursement for our accounts receivable department, and we want to ensure that the third-party payer is paying the correct amount that will be collected from the patient and that everything is billed and received in a timely manner. Again, your business office or financial office or chief financial officer will be doing the legwork on this, but it is important that as an HIM professional or a coder that you know the terminology and the process. Specifically, if you are asked to do an audit or you need to go back and pull records for old claims. Our fourth step is adjunctication. This is the determination of the reimbursement amount based on the beneficiary's insurance plan and benefits. Based on this, we have 4 outcomes. Figure 11.3 on page 178 is a good chart, and it's actually seen here on your slide. So our 4 outcomes are payment, suspend, reject, or deny. So when you're looking at these, is your claim error-free? Are services covered medical necessity? If so, then full reimbursement is going to be made here. Or is it your claim is suspended? And then there's going to be documentation that's requested. Maybe your line item is rejected or denied, and you're going to get partial reimbursement. Or your claim is completely rejected and no reimbursement is made. Again, this is where some good HIM professional skills come into play, along with looking at supporting primary diagnoses and procedure codes. Next, we have benefit statements. This is where the third-party payer is going to prepare what's called the EOB, or the explanation of benefits. This is a statement that describes the services that were delivered, charges that were covered, reimbursement that's made, and any limits or denials. Anyone familiar with EOBs? Have you ever looked at your EOB? There is an example on page 173 in your book, and I think it's important that you just spend a couple minutes looking over that, because you might actually have to look at an EOB if a patient calls you and they want you to go through why things were denied. This happens a lot in HIM, in medical billing and coding. So just be prepared that you might have to explain why certain things were covered and why they were not covered. In chapter 1, we went through this process. So if you need a refresher, I would advise you to go back to chapter 1 and review that area again. Next in our back-end process is claims reconciliation. After the claim is adjuncticated by the third-party payer, or remember, this is our insurance company, an RA or readmittance advice will be electronically returned to the provider. This advice form provides us with rejections, denials, and all payments to our facility. On page 173 in your textbook, you will see additional information that the RA contains. One thing to note is this will contain your ICD-10, CM, and PCS codes for inpatient claims, and your HCPCS codes and modifiers for your outpatient claims. So again, it's another validation as to why HIM professionals and coders are vital in this process. We want to make sure that we are reviewing these claims and that we have accurate code submissions. Lastly, we have collections. Our RA report is a great help in the collection process. We have specific employees that are going to be tasked with this role. They will contact the patient to collect any outstanding deductibles or cost-sharing amounts that were not covered by the insurance company. Basically, they are recouping payment for services that were rejected or denied, and these payments become the responsibility of the patient. So if the patient is unable to pay, we need to provide some type of payment plan, although this is not required. And remember, we talked about this already in our revenue cycle process. So basically, that is the back-end process and the end of the actual revenue cycle. So if you're still confused about the revenue cycle, go back to the first part and then just make your way through the cycle and reach out to me with any questions. As far as homework and moving forward, so part of your homework is to understand the back-end revenue cycle task. You're going to provide a description of the task that's stated on your homework assignment, and then you're going to give me who's responsible for this task. Is it the provider or is it the payer? Then you're going to do an EHR Go assignment with regard to ensuring accuracy on the 1500 form. And then don't forget about your quizzes. We will move into chapter 12, which is coding and CDI management. So again, reach out if you have any concerns or questions.